nice gulp you just got there. I heard the throat in like crystal clear, high definition.
I'm the throat goat.
Oh yeah!
No, don't play "Oh yeah" to that. Christ. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 106 of the Homegames podcast. I'm Yazeed, and this is Joseph.
Hello, I am Joseph, and today is that is not the right date. Today is Sunday, February. Jesus, today is April 24th.
Where did you get February from?
I think because I was trying to parse the 2-4, because today is 4/2/4/2022. It's like a very perfect squarey looking number. And so my brain like sees the 2 and thinks February.
4/2/4/22. Oh, I see. Yeah.
It's like it was really fucking with me. Today is April 24th, 2022. My name is Joseph. Your name is Yazeed.
I am Yazeed.
This is the Home Games podcast.
It is.
On the last episode, we did kind of a deep dive into Landlord, which is kind of like a technical thing. I don't know if I want to go so technical again, but basically the previous week before that recording, you and I went through the code together and just kind of walked through the functionality of Landlord, what it's responsible for, and how it fits into the kind of the greater system. And then most recently, you had some comments on like the cleanup that I did kind of before we actually put it up and got it ready for beta and kind of checked it off as ready. Your feedback was not that negative, but we could talk about what that was specifically. But
yeah,
we also talked about this past week after the last recording, we talked about Home Games Core, so that's what we'll get into after the recap of Landlord stuff.
Yes. So primarily my feedback on the Landlord stuff was that the driving file is still quite long, like 1,400 lines of code, 14 to 1,500 lines of code, somewhere in that range, I think. Which I'm not one of those people who's like, the whole function must fit in a single window, because it doesn't. One, I use very large text, so that doesn't really work. It's not like a good standard, I don't think. It's like arbitrary. But I do think 1,400 is quite long.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where like it doesn't, as long as you can modify and update the service without being overwhelmed by shit, then that seems fine to me. Of like, oh, this function is on the 800th line of this file. It's like, yeah, that's an inconvenience and certainly not ideal. But I don't want to keep kind of going down the rabbit hole of trying to fix stuff just because, or of clean stuff up. Like at a certain point, I just have to cut it and say, this is good. It could be better, but slap a beta sticker on it. You could be as shitty as you want to be. That's my plan.
Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't see anything with a logic that I was like, this is doo-doo garbage or confusing or anything like that. I thought for the most part, like, it was pretty good. It was easier to follow than the original. I will say that with 100% certainty. So like I said, it's not really like a big deal. I'm okay with leaving it, and we actually just merged it in right before this podcast, so yeah, it's somewhat done and dusted as far as conversation goes. But yeah, I do think the cleanup was good. I think the cleanup was really nice.
Awesome. Yeah, it's like I think I mentioned it last time, but it was just a lot of really dense logic where you're trying to follow along what's happening and saying, okay, well, this is what happens when someone makes a request to the website, and then this is like checking the authorization headers of the thing. Also, last episode I kept mixing up authentication and authorization, and I just know it's a thing, so I will clarify what I mean. So authentication is that you are who you say you are. Mm-hmm. So if you say I'm Yazeed, you have your token that authenticates you as Yazeed. Mm-hmm. Authorization is what Yazeed is able to do in the system. Mm-hmm. So is Yazeed authorized to perform an admin action? Mm-hmm. So I say auth, and then I'll use the full word of like authorization or authentication, and then it's confusing if you don't know, or like if people who are listening who don't know the difference, and then just start saying wrong shit. So I need to get better at saying right shit, which is not really my thing in general.
I'll be honest, didn't know there was a difference. Yeah. I'm sure like conceptually, but I didn't know that those terminologies were so rigorously defined.
Yeah, some smart person at my last job said that in a meeting, and I was like, "Ooh, I should remember that for the rest of my life," because I think they were correcting someone in a meeting. I was like, "Oh fuck, like never want to be corrected." So
that's a good reason to remember something.
Yes, but yeah, landlord has the authorization for the admin actions, and that's kind of I think what I was talking about. Where if you're going to approve or reject a game publishing request, you need to be authorized as an admin. And authenticated as the user who was authorized as the admin. Learning with Joseph.
I learned that's new. That's new for me. I'll whip that out casually at work too one day. It just sounds smart.
I'm gonna whip it out casually at work.
All right, all right, not like that. Yeah. I mean, I didn't really have much more on the landlord stuff. Like I said, I think the cleanup was really good. It touched on like kind of the difficulties we kind of talked about when we were going over it, and also during the podcast of just like it was quite confusing to follow. But I feel like we got through that.
Yes, and I don't know, I think I'm still learning this in a way, because in a lot of cases I think just getting something written and done is ultimately what you need to do. But doing that over and over and over again, and building and building and building to the point where you have kind of like a popsicle stick house, right? Where like everything on top is kind of just built on the shaky foundation. And every time you add something new, it's like, well, fuck, is this all going to fall apart because I'm adding yet another little wire, another little toothpick or whatever? And so like starting from the beginning and having thought out the plan and saying, okay, landlord is going to do these functions. It's going to be responsible for assets, games, and it's going to make some authorization calls, or authentication calls, and now authorization calls, and say, what does that look like in terms of a service? And I don't want to use any frameworks. We talked about that during the code review. Like, I don't want to use Express just because I'm like kind of an asshole, and I'm just like, oh, like black coffee, It's like I don't like frameworks in my code, and so just using the Node like standard HTTP library to run a server, and just if I had better defined the responsibilities of that service and its methods, it probably would have gone smoother. Because, like I said, it came to the point where adding anything new became expensive. And as we try to build a solid foundation for the beta stuff, we need to be able to consistently build on top of what we have, instead of just every time we touch it, it's like a Jenga tower or whatever. We're just like, oh, fuck, oh, no. I added one new API, oh, God.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but at the same time, if you don't have those things well defined, what is Homegames going to do? What is going to be calling landlord? And I don't think I had those things super clearly set at the beginning, but that's another kind of failure of mine. Like I could have been more of a project manager. But that's kind of the same failure I've had for the entire time of this project. Like I just am not a good project manager, and I don't really try to get better. So I think I should try to get better.
I don't know if I should nod my head to this or not.
I'll remember that forever, that you nodded your head when I said that. It's on camera.
I nod my head as just like I understand, not always like I agree.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's true. I spent a lot of time going through this code. I'm seeing a bunch of stuff that I just like forgot about. Like one of them I think I mentioned before was tags, but then in Landlord there's also the Elasticsearch stuff, and then a few other like proofs of concept that just never went anywhere. And thinking if we had a more clear defined goal from the beginning, and I didn't really not waste time, but kind of waste time learning
Spend time inefficiently.
Yeah, like learning is fun, and for me as a side project thing, which is kind of what this all is, to just learn is nice, but in terms of actually getting the thing done, it doesn't help. But at that point, it wasn't clear that what I was adding was not getting the thing done. It was just like something else to fuck around with. So anyway, Landlord's in a better state. It's easier to add stuff to. It's still not perfect. It's still all one file. But hopefully, in case we both get hit by buses, someone uncovers the magic of Landlord. It's not like lost forever.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that. I mean, really, like, some of the changes I'd like to see, not now necessarily, but, like, just as the future goes by, is bringing that up into like smaller files, adding tests, so like making sure those functionality in there is like pure or whatever. I'm starting to like lean away from like the really like it's a pure function or whatever. Like I don't think that's like very clear to people anyway. Like even people who know what that means, like that's not super clear. Like just a function that does like one thing, then you can test that one thing. So like it's unit testable basically. I'd like to see that, and then like TypeScriptify. But we talked about like moving all of that stuff back until after the beta, because right now we just want this to work.
Right.
As long as it works and we can then like leverage that to like make this stuff, like improve this stuff with feedback, I think that would be nice.
Yes. When you say a pure function, does that mean what you said, where it just does one thing, it's responsible for one thing, or what is the difference?
Technically, a pure function is a function with no side effects. So it takes in its input and it puts out an output, and it never adjusts the input.
Okay.
I don't think we need it to be pure. One, like React is impure. Like all of React is built specifically to like be impure, basically, despite claiming that some of their functions are pure. But that's by the by. I don't really think that there's like something really wrong with having a lot of side effects, and most of the functions didn't have too many. But I do think like kind of like when we go to pull this apart into separate files, we would need to like pull apart a little bit of like how it works, how it functions. Just because like if you don't want side effects, then you need to like really granularize like the inputs and the outputs and stuff like that. But I don't think that's like a really big deal. That's just like stuff that I would like to see in the future, because it does make stuff easier to like work with and test.
You mean with Landlord specifically, or just like
I'm with Landlord specifically, but just in general, bringing that to like all the other pieces. Yeah. It's something that I talked about a while ago about how the like the way that a lot of how we do the game node updates, we modify the existing game node as opposed to making a new game node and like replacing the current one, if that makes sense. Like that is technically like not pure, and it does have side effects because we're now affecting onto this game node, but like that's understood to be the case, so I think that's okay. But like I think in some places there are some like smaller functions we wouldn't expect there to be side effects, but there are. Slap this again. It's the third time while I'm talking. Anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. That stuff, it's nice to have like rules. And like what you're kind of saying, it's a nice goal or whatever, but it's not always 100%. Nothing is ever like 100% follow this every time, because that's just kind of silly. But yeah, the original design of when someone changes a value on this object, we have listeners, as opposed to this like immutable state transition thing. And maybe it's because I kind of don't like React anymore.
That's fair.
I used to really like the simplest, like, oh, there's a render function, you have a class, render is called when state changes. And it's like, okay, at a very simple level, I like that. But then maybe it's a web dev thing, but people just fucking overdo it. You need like a whole state management library. You need a whole in-memory cache for all your network stuff. You need to have like typed prop list or whatever if you're doing TypeScript, and it's like all this fucking shit on top of a web UI. And I'm not like belittling web UIs. It's just at a certain point, the most complex part of the code becomes something that you're not even building. Yeah. It's like the outcome of everything that you're building, how it's interacting. And it's like, maybe that's just web development in general, but it's so fucking overdone. Just to me, it's you can add yourself as a listener to an object. And maybe that's not the right way to do it, because maybe it does make more sense to kind of have that more traditional call set state, as opposed to just magically modifying something and it just works. That doesn't really help, I don't think. But yeah, anyway, as an example, I write code that doesn't meet standards or specifications or people's anything. It sucks, but it's it's really good though.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's fair. And React does overcomplicate things, and I don't want us to like follow that React model 1-to-1 because I do think it's too complicated. So I'm okay with us writing like impure. I'm gonna stop using that. I'm gonna stop saying pure and impure. Writing functions as side effects. I think that's fine. I think it's fine when moderated. I think that we do. Sometimes we can't overdo that, and I'd like to cut back where possible. I'll probably take a closer look on the dashboard's PR and go through it with an eye for that, because I think the dashboard's PR is probably a little bit easier to pull apart. Like there's functionality in there that's like, this is for controlling like the display of the grid. Like that can go to a separate file, or like, you know, like a space to like help manage like the actual grid view and like starting the game, and like all that stuff happens in the dashboard. So.
Yeah, we have the view stuff is pretty segmented, but the interface that we have to talk to it is pretty whatever. The code that I have out right now is not like finished. It's really just a functional version of game downloads, and the next part of our checklist for beta is having cleaned up code in Homegames core. So I'll probably do that like in addition to the current stuff and put that in the merge or the pull request. But yeah, I mean, it basically, unless it's the worst thing you've ever seen, like it's fine. We can fix it later.
That's fair.
Because the Homegames core stuff, it's not, like I said earlier, there's some weird and hard to follow parts. Like you and I were going over the way that the game list is rendered on the dashboard page, and I was just explaining how kind of this little window of games that you see and how it's scrollable and stuff, how it works and how it changes. And I forgot to actually tell you what the bug was, but it was basically kind of what we were just talking about, where if you have a constructor of the game, right, when you initialize the dashboard and you say, I have this many games stored on disk, so I want to load them and display them in a list. I need to calculate how long that list is going to be. And so I need to kind of dynamically adjust this sort of grid size that I'm going to place all of my games on, because I'm going to, you know, kind of put views on this grid and look at different games and stuff. And so basically I was initializing that plane to be 0, 0. It had no height, no width.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was wondering why the hell it had full width and full height when I would show you the dashboard. Like it was a bug with it, but I was literally like adjusting the thing and initializing it to be invisible, and it was always visible in the game. So it was some disconnect in what I was doing and how I thought everything was working and how it was really working. And it's because in one of the other methods I call on the initialize, I have a side effect where I calculate a number and then I set the width and height of that base thing like almost immediately after I initialize it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just shitty code. And so that made it hard for me, the person who wrote the code, to learn how it works.
Yeah.
And so that kind of stuff is what I'm fixing now, and just making it so, you know, my variable names make more sense, and it's easier to follow stuff, because the dashboard, like you said, is probably really complicated now just because it has to do so much. I think it's like 1,600 lines in one file. That's the other thing, is I try to break up like utilities and stuff like that every now and then, but if I'm writing a component, that's a fucking component. It's like a whole ass page, like a novel of code in one file. And I should get better at that too, but yeah, I don't know. That'll be the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, what's going to be a little bit trickier about it is I know that when you're making like a game or whatever, like this dot becomes very common. Like you operate off of like this, like the actual component, like the keyword this. Maybe that's something we want to look at and like try to cut down, because it does make it a little bit tricky to like.
Wait, this on a class?
Yeah.
That's like the whole point of this.
Yeah.
That's like.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna break up that 1,600 or however many line file into like multiple files, this becomes a little bit trickier to follow when you're in like a different file completely. So if we were gonna break it up, we would need to find a way of letting people know what this is in each file. Or like for each function, like either as like an argument or whatever.
We could break up the actual logic in each of the methods, and then just kind of we can make them pure functions.
God.
See, the funny thing I've noticed that most of us do is when there's some sort of name, like official name for something, and we kind of think it's a good idea, but we also hate that people think it's important. So we'll just say with it, oh, it's a pure function.
I do like that. If somebody ever in a pull request wrote needs to be pure, I'd be like, you're kind of an asshole. Like, honestly, like, what about this do you want me to fix? Like, can you reduce the side effects, whatever? So I don't like saying that, like, especially on the podcast, right? Because, like, I know some people who listen to the podcast don't know programming either at all or aren't, like, as into it or, like, into the weeds of it as we have been over the last few years, so...
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just thinking of if a pull request came back to me and the feedback was needs to be pure, I would square up right that minute.
Yeah.
What the fuck kind of comment is
that?
that?
Dude. Yeah. I've never gotten that, but it's something I've been thinking about.
Needs to be pure.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it even more haram and then send it right back. This is impure as it could be.
Just rub pork on your computer screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think looking into that piece of, like, how do we get around some of, like, the quirks of JavaScript, like how scope in JavaScript works, because it's kind of confusing, but at the same time it's like that's how it's supposed to work. So I don't know if we really need to address it. But yeah, when we're pulling that, if we do decide to, like, pull a dashboard apart or, like, anything like that, because in my head what I've been thinking about is how people are actually going to make games. And the way we've made games in the past is we just write one big file and it's like, here's the game. But I think, like, realistically the way it's really more likely to go is there's, like, a entry point file, like an index file, and that has, like, a folder structure behind it. And that folder structure has, like, all your supporting files and, like, the actual, like, driving file and, like, the, like, basically, like, setting up, like, an MVC kind of, where you have, like, your model you've used in your controllers almost, or something similar to that. You know what I mean? Like, just setting all of those things up, probably, like, in a folder in the back end. Because if I was going to write a new game, knowing what I do now, like, if I was going to go back and rewrite Square, I probably would break up some of the logic of Square into, like, supporting files, so that Square, the driver file for Square isn't quite so large, if that makes sense. Especially because, like, modern text editors, you can just be like, take me to the definition of this file, and it's like, it's actually, the definition of this function, it's like actually just like 2 files away. And there you go. So, I don't know. That's just something I've been thinking about of, like, yeah, because I have a friend who asked specifically of, like, when is Homegames going to be ready to make a game, because I want to make a game. And I was like, you're in luck. It'll be in beta in, like, a couple months. But, like, when I was thinking about, like, how he would tackle it, because I've worked with him and I know kind of, like, I have a pretty okay idea of how I think he's going to write this stuff. I think that is, like, how he's going to tackle it, where there's, like, an entry file and, like, supporting files. So
I think
something of us to think about.
I think we should support it. Like, we do actually at the moment. When you download a game, you actually get a folder of every source file that it has. So we'll pull in their index file and then whatever dependencies they have, which would be other stuff in that the path that we have on disk when you download a game. So we would support, like, having other folder structures, and I don't think I want to enforce anything beyond does it run, because I think there's something, like, if you look in the future and you see the Joseph and Yazeed Institute for Programming, and we teach people who, like, we actually teach as teachers.
Okay.
Right, because, like, we can teach things through building stuff. We can try to give advice and kind of, like, share knowledge that we've gained as programmers, but
yeah,
we're not teachers. And so I think my whole thing is I'm still just building something and giving people the option to do whatever they want. And I don't ever want someone to not do whatever they want. I'm just, like, I'm not in a position myself to say this is how you should do it, and, like, this is, like you said earlier, dealing with the quirks of JavaScript. I think the quirks of JavaScript are what I want to show. Like, I don't want to hide them, because my goal is for someone who's like, well, you know, I can learn Unity, or I can learn Unreal, and I can learn some sort of light programming specific to this engine, and I can make a game, and then, you know, maybe something goes wrong and I need to go and dig into the thing. I realize I don't know code.
Mm-hmm.
I know this nice tool that can build this nice thing, and that's like a great thing. But if you don't know how it works, then you don't really get valuable knowledge, except for that one specific domain or whatever. But if you go to this and you're like, wow, besides maybe like the quality, this is code that you would see in pretty much every software job. Like, this is how people get jobs. This is like what people do, and it's fucking programming, like a real language. At the end of this, I know JavaScript. If I understand the quirks of this shit, it's because I know JavaScript.
Yeah.
Not like the Homegames engine.
Mm-hmm.
But at a certain point, if we're like, no, we know this shit, we're like, we think that we know what we're talking about. Here's like an opinionated version of our libraries. You can use whatever, but if you want to do it the right way, you use our stuff. Pureware. Yeah. Yeah. Then we would release that and whatever. But I still think at the end of the day, we should not enforce anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I do agree. I was thinking more of like somebody who does have multiple files in like a folder structure that they're using. They're going to have to manage how scope works, right? Like this is like this in JavaScript is like, it means quite a bit, right? Like it's like the scope of like your interior function, and then like it also includes like the scope of like any outside functions and like a class or whatever like that. Basically, like it's the like scope in JavaScript is quite difficult to sometimes suss out if you're not in like the file with everything in there. So I think maybe we need to put like some tooling around it to make it a little bit easier to do that. since a lot of the modifications you do are like this dot add child, this dot game node, whatever, like find game node or whatever like that. Maybe like adding some tooling around making that a little bit easier depending on what file you're in to be able to be like my game or something like that.
Yeah. I guess this is kind of like a technical thing, but couldn't you have just functions that accept a game node as a parameter, and you just pass this dot whatever or this dot whatever? Like I said earlier, where you have like the logic to be self-contained. You have, level rendering logic, which talks to levels in a different directory over here, and then you have kind of assets that you reference, and that's all just orchestrated by your main class. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I guess, to me, like adding any nice things is me saying that this is the right way to be. You know what I mean? I'm trying to give you raw ass JavaScript.
In my head, just adding like a nice thing is like syntactic sugar. It's like, okay, like here's a by name, like instead of using like this, like my game or something like this, like my node or like my base node or something like this, just so that it's easier for people who are in like in a deeper function, because it is quite easy to lose the target, if that makes sense, of like what is this at this point. You and I know, or like, and probably they know that like in reality that's like the scope, but like this dot, like my game dot. They could still use this dot. Like, I'm not saying we take that away from them, because I don't think you can, but just as like an additional thing that they could leverage, just if they want it to be like nice or like a differently named thing to make it easier.
But like my game would be some sort of magic that we add, where it's some weird global variable,
just a pointer to this.
Yeah, which is just a reference to this at the end of the day, where like to me what that is like a subclass. It's like this extends this and this extends this, and it just seems weird. Mm-hmm. And maybe because I write Java now like professionally, so I just think in like an object oriented way. But it just seems like having any sort of magic. My ultimate point is that if you have any sort of magic, it's us saying, fuck the way this works, you need our magic. I need the raw shit I can get. I need like uncut JavaScript. Like the drug Uncut, not the way Uncut you're thinking.
Alright, fair enough.
But
okay. Yeah, I do think there is value in giving to them raw. Jesus.
My thing is, if you have functions that accept a game node, and then the game class passes this or this dot base or this dot whatever as a thing, maybe the ultimate solution that we need is something to manage those game nodes better. You don't need access to this, because if this is only used to modify your game tree, then the real problem is you can't easily modify your game tree. So then maybe we should add something for that at some point in the future. But I think however we do it should be very like vanilla. And we are using JavaScript to do this. It's easier for you, but nothing here is not like easily trackable and find outable, figurable outable. Is
Can you give me 1 second? I got a text message. That's also thinking about. I don't know who it is.
Oh, I want Mike's hot honey.
That's a good one. So
yes.
Yeah, anyway, JavaScript. I was talking to someone recently, and he asked me he's an ex-coworker. He asked me what languages I use and whatever. Oh, no, this was someone else. Anyway, doesn't matter who it was. Someone asked me my favorite language. I said JavaScript. And he said, that's my least favorite language. I hate JavaScript more than anything. But everything else you said is cool. But like the key point was that he hates JavaScript. And he said it's because of all of the quirks. Like just the weirdness of, this 3 = the string 3 is true or whatever the fuck. Like, the type stuff and syntax stuff and whatever. But like, if you know what you're doing, and this is what I've said before with TypeScript, if you know what you're doing, then it totally is fine. And if you fuck yourself over, you fuck yourself over. I just gave you the tools. I have it's like very libertarian stance on JavaScript. It's like you made this world for yourself, And I don't give a fuck about you.
Yeah. Lie in it. Yeah. JavaScript does have some weird quirks to it. I'm surprised anybody says that JavaScript is their least favorite language when C exists. C is literally just like somebody. Never mind. I won't complete that thought.
C is amazing.
No. Right, listen, C in concept, neato, super cool, very base like language, like not base, but
very
like
based.
Like, no, not based.
Like Lil B.
No, like basal, like when you're talking about like animal evolution, like it's basal, like it's very like close to assembly. Like there's that like quote from when we were in school. They're like, C has all the functionality of assembly, and also it's like shit. Like it looks like shit. And I hate writing C and managing my memory. Like, it's just not a good developer experience as far as I'm concerned. When you're trying to, like, build something, it just sucks ass to be like, give me, like, allocate 15 gigabytes of doo-doo, and then I'm sticking it right in there. Oh, shit. I ran out of array doo-doo. I gotta, like, add more. Like, fuck that. That's awful. I hate it. Like,
but isn't that the most perfect...
No, assembly is better than C as far as I'm concerned.
In terms of syntax or its actual
everything, I much prefer assembly to C. C, the course in college, was what made me almost quit computer science.
C in college is what turned it around and made me like really like majoring in computer science.
Christ,
see,
this is so funny.
We did a rate my professor at the end of the semester for. We didn't have the same C class, did we?
No, I had Homer.
Yeah. And so I had like a temporary, he was like the head of the department, but he was teaching a semester for whatever reason. And everyone in the class hated him. We had like a 7:30 a.m. class, and everybody said his teaching style was trash, his tests were trash, the content was trash. We were learning C and system programming, and I think it was system programming and Unix was the name of the class. But seeing how fucking hard it was and being like, all of this is just laid out for you. This is as close as I could, personally, comfortably can get to a computer's guts. Assembly I can do, but we only know MIP, which is apparently like fucking N64 level assembly language.
Yeah.
So, like C is programming. It's everything that you learn and need to know about the fundamentals of a computer.
Yeah.
Allocating memory is important because if your shit uses resources and you don't know about how the resources are used or don't care, then you use more resources. Yeah. And it's worse.
Yeah.
It's the best.
No.
Okay.
Listen, as a teaching tool, as like a learning computer science tool, sure, fine, that's true. I'm professionally writing code, I don't day to day want to do that. Like in my day-to-day job, I don't want to be like somebody took a shit on the memory. They added too much, or they didn't malloc it, or what is it? Alloc and malloc, is that right? The one that like garbage collects, basically.
I'm pretty sure malloc does that.
Yeah, malloc and alloc. Yeah. So like if somebody else on the team doesn't allocate and malloc correctly, like allocate memory and remove that allocated memory correctly, like now you just have a memory leak, and that's not on you, and like maybe you should have done a better job in the pull request. Like it makes it more to manage in terms of like being a developer, and I don't like C because of that. Also, I don't like the syntax. I don't like caring about like how granularly all the typing and stuff works. That's also why I don't like Java though.
See, I would write. I actually like the idea of writing C professionally, but it seems like if I were to get into it now, it'd be like trying to get into competitive Street Fighter 2. It's like I'm 30 years behind other people who have been doing this. So the idea of professional C is so nuts to me, but I know people do C++ or whatever. But I think it's just like an ideal, like if I had all the time in the world and wanted to build something perfect, I would use C to build it because it needs to be perfect. Uses exactly as much memory as it needs. It's as fast as it possibly can be. It's like perfect.
Just write assembly, bro.
Maybe.
Assembly's even closer. At assembly, you're managing which register has what data at what time. Like if you're really talking about like managing your memory and like managing resources as like tightly as possible, that's even more than C. Although you can, I think you can manage registers in C too. I think there's a way to do that if I remember right.
See, there you go. You just defeated your own argument.
Yeah, but you don't need a compiler for like. What do you need? Assembly goes to machine code, but how does it go to machine code? I don't think it's through a compiler. Do you compile your code?
Doesn't assembly run directly on a processor?
No, machine code runs on the processor. Yeah. Assembly has to be transpiled into machine code. Is it transpilation? I don't remember.
I don't know.
But anyway, that's some nerd shit. Really nerd shit. Back to Homegames.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all that we had for Homegames content. It's just that you and I are going to be kind of going through more pull requests, I guess, until we do stuff. I just wanted to mention, though, like, in terms of functionality and nothing else, when we get this pull request through for Homegames Core, the stuff that we've been talking about, the dashboard and downloads, feature-wise, we're done. Mm-hmm. Everything else is cleanup and making sure the website is laid out correctly and that our buttons all work, and trying to make it kind of I want to make it less skeletal, and maybe it's because I know how every single component works, but when I do things I can see all the pieces. Like, what? I was watching a video about Battlefield 2042. There's this guy called Nerd Slayer who does, it's called The Death of a Game.
Okay.
I'll bring it all back. Hopefully. Okay. So he does the Death of a Game series where he'll go through and just talk about, why a particular game failed, its community went to zero or whatever. And he had one on Battlefield 2042, which just came out a few months ago. And he was talking about changes to the engine and, things, it just doesn't look as good, and ways that they needed to compromise to make it run. And I'd never really thought about games like that before in terms of an engine. Like when I think about Modern Warfare 2, probably one of my favorite games of all time. I spent probably 35 to 40 days of my life playing Modern Warfare 2. And that game is an engine and then content that kind of fits into that engine in such a way where like it creates like so much fun. You know what I mean? It's like such a good experience with software, whatever, and it's all running on a core of guts. And you don't see the guts ever. You just see the game because the guts are so good. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so when I look at the stuff that we have now with the dashboard, and when I click into a game and I see it load and I see like the transition states between different frames and how when something loads too slow and you see the background frame for like a split second, like all I see is guts. I don't see any like experience of it. I just see the guts. So all this cleanup stuff that we're doing for the next couple months is going to be like just polishing and making sure that the code is good. So when someone's like, wow, this is great, I can read the code and it all makes sense. And Yazeed can read the code and isn't like, man, this guy's a fucking madman. And
I think I'll always think like that.
Yeah. Well, less so, I guess, is the goal. And yeah. So anyway, just trying to make it more of like, because ultimately with the beta, we're trying to sell people on it and show like, this is something cool that we built. Please give us your time and effort, which is a lot to ask for. Just a week or two of your time and effort and fuck around with this. And we need to be able to prove to them that concept when they spend that time, and not just like, oh, this is a cool thing they're doing, I don't really like it. We need to make it cool. I also wanted to do an ad. I'm going to do like a fucking commercial, a 15-second like structured little thing so I can advertise the beta like on YouTube and Google and stuff.
Nice.
It'll be cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
And put the little dancing guy game on.
We'll see. We can use him somewhere in there. But all I know is I just want to button all this stuff up and get it out, and then if people hate it, then I'll at least know that I tried to button it up and make it cool. Instead of like, oh well, I knew all that sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I'm excited for it to go into beta. I'm excited for us to continue to clean this up and then get into beta.
Yes.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah. And then we'll see. Like hopefully at the end of this year we have some sort of a different state of these things, of this stuff. Because,
No.
Like, we have been showing up, fucking around, blacking out, and talking about code for a long time.
That's true.
The podcast has been it's like 2.5 years or something like that.
Christ.
And so I want the end of this year to just something be different. Something.
That's fair.
Yeah. Because I don't know. I just want anything to be different.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If at the end of this year you're like, all right, Homegames isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
How are you going to spend your free time?
I don't know.
All right.
I don't know.
So we got to make this a success.
Yeah, I don't enjoy anything else anymore. So it's like when I sit down and I'm like, oh, let me play Elden Ring. I just like don't like it. I don't like Elden Ring. I don't like any like game I play. I kind of like Gran Turismo, but I don't give it time. I can't do it.
No.
I have to I have to do this. I think if I didn't work on this, I would find something else to do, cuz like I don't know, dude. I kind of hate video games. Like all of them.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. The 2042 video is like, goddamn, businesses ruined video games. Things used to be fun.
That's true. But then you have like No Man's Sky that business ruined, but then the developers put it back together. And it's like a pop-in game or whatever.
It's true.
Or like Cyberpunk, which was barely a game, but I beat it anyway. And now it's supposed to be like quite a bit better.
But that's kind of the whole thing, right? Where if you just think of how many people who are like that, or like, this is the hobby I like, and I spend countless hours and dollars and whatever, and it's like, I love this thing, and the people who make this thing do not give a fuck about me. Like, I'm excited for Battlefield 2042, and they just wanted to sell me this thing before they sell me the next thing, and like, it sucks. And so I guess it's like, if you think about people who are like, well, fuck that, I want to like make my own better thing. It's like, you can't with Homegames, for sure. You cannot, but you can try. You can like learn something to build yourself and get better, and then make something better.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't know, dude. Fucking
Listen,
sucks.
I don't think that games need to be as complicated as AAA games make them to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think like Homegames like actually does have potential to like compete with bigger games, because like maybe you can't make the new Call of Duty on Homegames, but do you need to make the new Call of Duty on Homegames, or do you just need to make a game that's like broody 2D point and shooty and fun, actually fun to play?
Yeah.
And you're just playing with your friends, so you don't have to play with randos. You don't have to worry about like that person who opens up on over their headset, or like no one does it anymore, so I'm dating myself. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of shit.
You're dating yourself? Oh, you're making yourself old. You're
I'm making
telling
myself
old.
seem old because I don't think like Zoomers actually like use their headset to talk to randos when they're playing video games. Like they just hang out with their friends when they do that.
That's true. Our generation started that though, like with Xbox parties and Skype and shit. That was us.
Yeah, we were both though. On 360, you still did chat with people. I know because I was involved with that.
It's true.
And also, you know, like the transition away from doing that and like only talking to people in the party. Yeah. That's also us.
Yeah, but you're right. I totally agree. Like, games look great and stuff, but I don't think. And this is like the classic I've gotten older thing.
Yeah.
So of course I don't think games are as good as they used to be. But what was I gonna say? Anyway, fuck it. Games are worse. That's all.
I mean, listen, is Cyberpunk fundamentally better than Skyrim? Probably not.
Or New Vegas.
I don't like New Vegas. I wouldn't compare it to that.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, like,
you know what I mean though, like Skyrim's like what, like 100 years old at this point and can run on a toaster, and Cyberpunk couldn't run on high-end gaming consoles until like pretty recently. So it's like, is fundamentally Cyberpunk better, or is it just a bunch of bullshit stuffed into it and it's like fine, I guess?
Yeah.
Like the game was fun, sure, I'll give you that, but I also enjoyed Skyrim and played through Skyrim more times than I played through Cyberpunk at this point. Yeah. I've beaten Skyrim like 3 times. I've beaten Cyberpunk 1.25 times. So, I don't know. I think Homegames has actual potential as long as we can get people to use it and we keep like maintaining it and like updating it and like meeting their asks and demands well. I think we could make it happen.
If we get to a point where there are asks and or demands for anything that we do, I would call that a success. Right at the moment, we have 7 stars on GitHub. I call that a success.
Hell yeah.
That's a lot of fucking stars.
That is. More stars than I have.
Yeah. Fuck you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, so, I don't know. I think if we have a community at all, and then that means that people see promise. Like any kind of feedback is good feedback, because if people like did not give a fuck, they wouldn't even give you negative feedback.
Yeah.
Negative feedback is like, I see something here and I want it, whatever. So if someone's like, hey, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, it's like, thank you for looking. So that's kind of what I mean by hiding the guts and like getting a more smooth, consistent thing. And like if we can get seamless downloads working where someone can just like, seriously, the thing that worked for me when I try it, which is just down in the client playing on another thing over there. Like, if that doesn't click with people, then I don't understand people at all, and I need to quit everything because like this is a waste of time, you know. But I think it clicks with people if you see it and you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah, that's like my game, or that's like my boys' game.
Yeah.
Or like my boys' game, or my boys' girls' game, or my boys' NB game.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, we'll see. I'm in this weird thing of like, I don't know, just looking forward to the stuff, and we're going at a steady pace. We might have too much time left over or not enough. We'll see. But we'll make it better.
I don't want to be here anymore. Is that the line?
I don't want to be around anymore.
Oh, yeah.
No.
That's funny. Yeah. We'll see. Hopefully it works out, because I don't know what you're gonna do, and that worries me.
Oh no, I'm fine. I'll start some like crypto bullshit. I'll be a crypto bro. If this doesn't work, I'm gonna become a crypto bro.
No, see, I know that won't work out because you have Synovia, and she probably won't let you do that. So we'll be okay.
Nah, dude, I'm gonna buy a Bored Ape yacht club. I'm going to start just being really good at Twitter marketing. Just be like, guys, ape coins going up. You're going to watch this. I'm going to be a total asshole on July 2nd. Will we hit the button?
You already have an NFT already.
I do have.
In the door.
It's true. It's like a pinky toe in the door.
Yeah.
That NFT is, I don't know what the fuck it is either. There's music on it. I don't know. You should listen to the song. It's really bad. I bought an NFT.
No one has ever told me to listen to a song specifically because it's really bad. They'll be like, listen to the song, it's pretty dope. Or they'll be like, listen to the song, it's funny, or whatever.
No, this one's only funny because I bought it as an NFT. It's just like a terrible song. Christ. It was a $60 cartoon Bean Man, and he's holding up artwork, and the whole series is just different colored bean men holding up different artwork. Okay?
Uh-huh.
And then when you go to the NFT, it has a link to like a website, like a traditional website, which just has a link to a Spotify song. So I don't think I actually own the NFT of the Spotify song. I don't know what the fuck I own. I have a little bean man. And there's a link to a song, and the song is shit. You should listen to it. It's funny.
All right, send it my way. I'll listen to it.
It's called Winner Winner by this guy named Ronnie E.
Do you think that he's just trying to get people to listen to him on Spotify?
I mean, it worked. I'm the real fucking sucker here because not only did I listen to his music, I paid him I paid someone $60 so I could own an image, technically. That fucking something. I don't know how NFTs work, dude. I just figure I might as well give it a shot before I, like, give up on it completely, you know? See what it's all about.
That's okay.
See, I'm already half crypto, bro. So it's gonna happen for sure if this thing fails.
Please, if you're a listener out there, before we turn out for the night, please make Homegames work.
Just give us a star.
I can't see Joseph putting any crypto.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, like, all jokes aside, I actually am excited for this thing. I'm just kind of over it. You know? Like, I'm just tired.
That's fair.
Yeah. I just want to see it out the door and then back in the door when we, like, work on it post-beta.
Yeah. It's like closing out a sprint, you know?
Yeah, 4-year sprint.
Yeah, you know, Friday, you know, you're like, all right, we did a good job, team. High fives all around. Then Monday you come in, you're like, let's get at it. You know what I'm saying? Let's go.
Yeah. That'll be my attitude on either Dogecoin or Homegames come 4th of July.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening. As always, our music is done by our friend Tynan. He is Nitan on Bandcamp. Nitan, Nytan. We have a Twitter at Homegames.io. We also have a website, Homegames.io. We have a contact form you can use at the bottom of the page to send us questions, feedback, comments, concerns, praise, criticism, your favorite NFTs, and more.
Don't send us your favorite NFTs.
Send us your favorite NFTs. Yazeed will personally review all of them.
No. Please. Bye, everyone.